Bigfoot is not just big in stature. For some, it's also big business. There's long been a thriving economy built around the legend. So when we heard an account of a man who said he killed Bigfoot, we had to investigate.
What if one of the greatest cryptid mysteries of all time had just been solved? Rick Dyer, a man who claims to have killed Bigfoot, has come forward with what he says is undeniable proof. Photos that show the elusive creature he allegedly hunted down. It's a bold claim that has sent shockwaves through the cryptozoology community and beyond. But is there any truth to his story? Could this be the moment we've all been waiting for? Or is it just another elaborate hoax? Buckle up, because we're about to dive deep into the world of Bigfoot hunters and the controversial evidence that Rick Dyer says will finally prove the creature's existence once and for all. The hunt begins. Rick Dyer's shocking claim. Bigfoot isn't just a massive figure in folklore, it's also big business. The legend of this elusive creature has sparked a thriving economy, with everything from merchandise to expeditions fueled by the possibility of its existence.
There was 3 shots, and the 3rd shot wound up ending Bigfoot's life.
Breaking news out of Texas, Bigfoot is real.
On September 6, 2012, in the quiet outskirts of San Antonio, Texas, Rick Dyer, a self-proclaimed Bigfoot tracker, took his obsession with the legendary creature to new heights. After hearing a startling 911 report about a large, hairy animal feasting on a deer in the woods, Dyer seized the opportunity. For him, this wasn't just another rumor. It was a genuine chance to prove to the world that Bigfoot was real. Driven by a mixture of excitement and determination, he set a trap designed to lure the creature in. He scattered deer urine around the area and hung pork ribs in the trees, banking on Bigfoot's carnivorous instincts. It was a strategy he believed could bring him face to face with the legendary beast. Rick Dyer wasn't just a casual Bigfoot enthusiast. He considered himself one of the few serious Bigfoot trackers in the country. His quest to capture the legendary creature had taken him to remote locations, deep into the wilderness, and through countless sleepless nights spent in anticipation. For Dyer, this wasn't just about curiosity. It was about proving to the world, and perhaps to himself, that Bigfoot existed. He had studied hundreds of reports, analyzed footage, and even claimed to have had personal encounters before. This wasn't just another hunt. This was the hunt. The 911 call came through late on the evening of September 6, 2012. A frantic voice on the other end of the line claimed to have seen something that sounded straight out of a nightmare. A large, hairy creature, easily over 7 feet tall, devouring a deer in the dark woods of San Antonio. The dispatcher's first reaction might have been disbelief, but there was something in the caller's voice that suggested they had genuinely witnessed something terrifying. News of the sighting quickly spread through the local community, reigniting old rumors about strange sightings in the Texas wilderness. Dyer chose his location carefully, a dense thicket just outside the city, where the forest stretched for miles, filled with shadows that could easily hide a creature of unimaginable size. The air was thick with humidity, the scent of pine and damp earth surrounding him as he went about his work. He carefully set the pork ribs on the branches, their smell wafting through the night air, mixing with the unmistakable musk of deer urine that he had spread beneath the trees. Every movement was calculated, every action precise. As he worked, the quiet woods around him seemed to shift with anticipation, the darkness alive with the possibility of what might come. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the woods in a deep, impenetrable darkness, Dyer retreated to his tent. He lay there, heart pounding, his senses on high alert for any sign of movement. Every rustle of the wind through the trees, every crack of a distant branch set his nerves on edge. Time seemed to slow as he waited in the silence, his grip tightening on the firearm resting beside him. He knew that if Bigfoot appeared, it wouldn't give him a second chance. According to Dyer, his plan worked exactly as he'd hoped. In the dead of night, when the forest was at its most still, he claims the creature emerged from the shadows, drawn by the potent scent of the pork ribs. The night was silent, but then, suddenly, Dyer heard it. A faint rustling, barely audible but unmistakable. His heart raced as he peeked out from his tent, his eyes adjusting to the moonlight filtering through the trees. There it was, just beyond the pork ribs, standing at the edge of the clearing. A massive figure, easily 8 feet tall, covered in thick, dark fur that gleamed faintly in the moonlight. Dyer froze, his breath caught in his throat. This was it, the moment he had been waiting for. His mind raced. Was he ready for this? Slowly, he reached for his firearm, knowing he had only seconds before the creature would bolt. Without hesitation, he took his shot. Rick Dyer wasted no time capitalizing on what he called the discovery of a lifetime. Mere days after the alleged encounter, he made sure the world would know about it by releasing a series of photos that, according to him, depicted the fallen Bigfoot. The images were undeniably striking. In them, a massive figure lay frozen and preserved, with Dyer boldly asserting that it was none other than an adult Bigfoot. The creature, he claimed, was a shocking 8 feet tall, 4 feet wide, and weighed a staggering 800 pounds. It wasn't just the size of the creature that caught people's attention, but the meticulous details he provided about its physical condition. One of the most jarring aspects of the images was a long, prominent scar that ran down the center of the creature's chest. Dyer stated that this scar was the result of an autopsy conducted at a secret college in Washington state, a claim that only added to the mystery. According to him, the autopsy was carried out to prove once and for all that this was no hoax, but a real flesh-and-blood Bigfoot. The location of the college remained undisclosed, further adding to the mystery, but Dyer insisted that the procedure had been done to verify the authenticity of his find. But Dyer didn't stop with just photos and claims. He went further, turning his discovery into an event, one that he hoped would capture the attention of believers and skeptics alike. He nicknamed the creature Hank and set off on a national tour, taking the frozen body across the country for anyone to see, for a price. Hank was displayed under glass in a specially made wooden coffin, and for a fee, curious onlookers could come face to face with what Dyer claimed was undeniable proof of Bigfoot's existence. The spectacle drew crowds. From small towns to major cities, people lined up, eager to catch a glimpse of the supposed legendary beast. According to Dyer, the tour was a massive success, netting him close to $50,000 as thousands of people paid to see Hank. The tour wasn't just about the money, though. For Dyer, it was also about proving that after decades of sightings, hoaxes, and tall tales, he had finally brought the truth to light. The public reaction was a mix of awe and skepticism. Some were amazed by the sight of the enormous creature encased in glass, while others left the exhibit with more questions than answers. But no matter the reaction, one thing was clear. Rick Dyer had once again found a way to put himself and Bigfoot in the spotlight, whether or not the creature he displayed was real. Bigfoot researcher Cliff Barackman was not entirely shocked that this story unfolded in Texas. According to Barackman, Texas has a long history of Bigfoot sightings, even though it's not the first state that comes to mind when people think of the creature's habitat. He explained that Bigfoot's distribution across North America closely mirrors that of black bears, with Texas being an ideal environment for both. The state's vast, rough terrain and dense forest provide the perfect hiding spots for a creature of this nature, and sightings have been reported for decades. While Dyer's claims reignited Bigfoot fever in Texas, they also raised skepticism. Could this be the evidence that finally proves the existence of Bigfoot? Or was Dyer's story just another elaborate hoax? The land of Texas, eastern Texas, with its subtropical climate and frequent rainstorms from the Gulf of Mexico, has long been a hotspot for Bigfoot sightings. The lush, densely forested regions provide the perfect cover for a creature as elusive as Bigfoot. Many believe there's a direct correlation between the amount of rainfall an area gets and the frequency of Bigfoot reports. The theory is that abundant rain leads to thriving ecosystems, which in turn provide the food sources and dense vegetation necessary for such creatures to survive and remain hidden. And Texas, with its vast wilderness, fits this description perfectly. Reports of large, mysterious, hairy creatures in Texas date back nearly a century, but the origins of these encounters stretch back even further. As early as 1924, the Texas Folklore Society published The Wild Woman of Navidad, documenting a series of unsettling sightings involving an unexplained figure eerily similar to modern descriptions of Bigfoot. This wild woman was said to have roamed the Navidad River, terrifying locals with her imposing size and wild appearance, blending myth with reality. However, tales of such creatures didn't begin with this publication. Long before white settlers arrived in the region, indigenous tribes in Texas had their own accounts of Sasquatch-like beings. These tribes passed down oral histories describing human-like creatures that inhabited the dense forests. Unlike the fearful encounters described by later settlers, the indigenous people spoke of these beings with a mix of reverence and caution, portraying them as elusive but powerful entities that shared the land. When European settlers began arriving in the area during the 19th century, they too encountered strange, hulking figures in the wilderness, referred to as wild men or wild women. These sightings added a new layer to the growing lore of Texas's mysterious creatures. Newspaper articles from the late 1800s and early 1900s recount hair-raising stories of these encounters, often detailing massive, hairy figures glimpsed from a distance before vanishing into the dense underbrush. In one well-documented case from the 1920s, settlers reported being startled by a towering, hair-covered figure that fled into the woods after spotting humans, its size and movements leaving them shaken. These stories, often shared in hushed tones around campfires, wove themselves into local folklore, keeping the legend of Bigfoot alive in Texas. Despite the growing collection of sightings, no definitive proof of Bigfoot's existence has ever emerged. Eyewitness reports, while fascinating, always seem to lack the one thing needed to turn myth into reality: hard evidence. Skeptics often pointed to the absence of bodies, bones, or other tangible traces, leaving the legend to remain just that, a legend. The public sentiment. Almost immediately after Rick Dyer declared that he had shot and killed Bigfoot, his bold claims faced intense scrutiny. While it wasn't uncommon for people to come forward with supposed evidence of Bigfoot sightings or encounters, Dyer's history with deception raised major red flags. His reputation was already questioned, making his new claim even more difficult to believe. This skepticism wasn't without merit. Dyer had been involved in one of the most notorious Bigfoot hoaxes in history back in 2008. In that infamous incident, Dyer and another man claimed to have found the body of a dead Bigfoot in the forests of Georgia. The news quickly spread like wildfire, captivating the public and media alike. People were desperate to see what was being touted as the most groundbreaking cryptozoological discovery of all time. The promise of finally solving the Bigfoot mystery seemed within reach. But what began as excitement soon unfolded into a crushing disappointment. As the world anxiously awaited the unveiling of the so-called Bigfoot corpse, it became clear that something was off. The body Dyer presented was nothing more than a frozen Halloween costume, stuffed with animal parts to make it appear more authentic. The hoax was quickly exposed, and the fallout was immense. Dyer's deception left a deep scar on his credibility, not only within the Bigfoot research community, but also with the general public.
Breaking news to some of you, and it may be shocking, but turns out the Bigfoot that was supposed to be killed here in San Antonio actually was not. Rick Dyer, the man who claims to have killed him and has been traveling around the country with the beast in a trailer as a sort of sideshow, now says the body is a fake.
This wasn't just a small prank. It became one of the most infamous frauds in the history of cryptozoology, and it cast a long shadow over any future claims Dyer might make. So when Dyer came forward again in 2012, claiming to have killed Bigfoot, it's no surprise that his announcement was met with overwhelming skepticism. How could anyone trust that this time he had really uncovered what had eluded generations of researchers, scientists, and cryptozoologists for so long? Was this another elaborate ploy designed to attract attention and make a quick profit? Or had Dyer actually succeeded in doing what countless others had only dreamed of? The doubt surrounding his claim was only magnified by his previous fraud, and for many, the 2012 declaration felt like history repeating itself. But the skepticism went beyond just Dyer's own credibility. It spoke to larger questions about the existence of Bigfoot itself. After decades of reported sightings, dubious footprints, and grainy photographs, many began to wonder, if Bigfoot is real, why hasn't anyone ever captured definitive proof? Could it really be possible that a creature as massive as Bigfoot has managed to evade human detection for centuries, leaving behind nothing but traces of its presence? These questions hung heavily over Dyer's latest claims, casting a shadow of doubt. Was he on the verge of proving something extraordinary? Or was this just another chapter in the long series of scams and myths that have plagued the search for Bigfoot? The world, already wary of Dyer's motives, was left to ponder whether this was the discovery of a lifetime or simply a repeat of the past. Experts' opinions. Among serious Bigfoot researchers, Rick Dyer's claims quickly sparked outrage. For those deeply invested in the scientific pursuit of evidence, staging such an elaborate hoax wasn't just frustrating, it was a blow to their credibility and the integrity of the entire Bigfoot research community. Hoaxes like Dyer's don't just raise eyebrows. They cause lasting damage to the work of genuine researchers who spend years compiling evidence and trying to elevate Bigfoot studies to a level of scientific respectability. The backlash against Dyer was swift, and it wasn't limited to casual observers. Some of the field's leading experts weighed in with sharp critiques of Dyer's alleged discovery. Anthropologist Kathy Strain, a strong believer in Bigfoot's existence, was particularly vocal about her doubts. What I find problematic, Strain pointed out, is that he claims he shot it with a shotgun several times, and yet there's no sign of any ballistic damage on the body. For Strain, this glaring lack of evidence, a body supposedly riddled with gunshot wounds showing no signs of impact, was enough to dismiss Dyer's story as fiction. After all, if the creature had been shot at close range multiple times, there would undoubtedly be visible damage to its body. Wildlife biologist Stephanie Schuttler offered a different perspective, focusing her critique on the creature's face. When examining Dyer's photos, she pointed out a number of troubling inconsistencies. The chapping around the eyes and lips is really strange, almost like it was exposed to harsh cold conditions, she noted. Schuttler found it highly suspicious that a creature supposedly killed in the sweltering heat of southern Texas would display physical traits more typical of one living in an Arctic environment. Additionally, she observed the eyes looked as though they had been glued shut, making the whole presentation seem like something out of a cheap Hollywood movie rather than a real biological specimen. Perhaps the harshest criticism came from Jeff Meldrum, a professor of anatomy and anthropology, widely considered the world's most respected Bigfoot researcher. Meldrum's reputation as a serious academic and passionate believer in Bigfoot made his words carry significant weight. He was quick to point out the absurdity of Dyer's claims, saying, "The brow was unnaturally high, with a pronounced forehead, and the lips were strangely inverted. The pug-like nose and swollen cheeks made it look less like a living creature and more like a stuffed prop." According to Meldrum, none of the features of Dyer's so-called Bigfoot aligned with the eyewitness reports or detailed sketches of Sasquatch that researchers have compiled over the years. The creature presented by Dyer looked cartoonish, lacking any of the anatomical traits that would suggest it was real. Once experts like Meldrum, Schuttler, and Strain had weighed in, the verdict was clear. Rick Dyer's Bigfoot was nothing more than another hoax, and a poorly executed one at that. Despite the dramatic photos and Dyer's boastful claims, he never provided any scientific evidence, such as DNA results or autopsy reports, to back up his story. The absence of verifiable data left little doubt in the minds of researchers. Dyer had once again concocted an elaborate ruse, similar to the 2008 debacle, where he fooled the public with a Halloween costume stuffed with animal parts. Although Dyer may have earned a quick payday from his hoax, serious Bigfoot researchers suffered the real consequences. To them, Dyer's actions didn't just tarnish his own reputation, they harmed the broader community of investigators who have spent years building a credible case for the existence of Sasquatch. Hoaxes like this one make it even harder for legitimate researchers to gain traction in their efforts to prove Bigfoot's existence, as each new trickster adds another layer of skepticism to the already controversial field. For many, Dyer's actions weren't just a harmless joke. They were a betrayal of the genuine passion and commitment that fuels the ongoing search for Bigfoot. In the end, Rick Dyer's claims of killing Bigfoot and the nationwide tour of the creature nicknamed Hank brought as much skepticism as interest. While Dyer may have drawn crowds and generated attention, the lingering questions about his past hoaxes and the lack of concrete evidence kept serious researchers and experts at arm's length. His story captivated the public, but it also raised the same question that has surrounded Bigfoot for decades. Is it all just a myth, or is there truth hiding in the shadows? For many, the legend of Bigfoot remains an unsolved mystery, a subject of fascination and debate. But one thing is certain: as long as people seek answers, the search for Bigfoot will continue. Whether Dyer's story was a step toward revealing the truth or just another chapter in the saga of hoaxes, the legend of Bigfoot lives on. What do you think? Was Rick Dyer telling the truth? Or is this just another story in the long list of Bigfoot myths?